we have ignored this issue of, person with disability and disability in general in disaster risk management quite long. We shouldn't ignore it. We should really mainstream it in our discussions and works and practices. This is very important that we also have a better understanding on these issues. In many cases, when we tend to work, we forget about them, but at the same time, we don't, plan according to a proper understanding of the needs, the proper understanding of the issues that requires significant attention. So in this manner, I would suggest that we have more consultations on a person with disability. This year we are having quite a lot because this year is focused on that particular issue quite a bit from UNISDR and global community. And from Asian Disaster Preparedness Center we are doing quite a lot to keep this as a center focus of many of our works as well.
So thank you. So another question is that why is early warning and disability needs special consideration, and what is ADPC doing about it?
Early warning is an area which is grown for the last few years. If you just look at the growth of this particular system since Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004, we have seen that there has been a big need for early warning system establishment. It's not just early warning, but establishing a system and gradually moving ahead with having a subsystem of risk knowledge, having a subsystem of monitoring and detection, and then we need to have a proper subsystem for warning dissemination, and not only that, the response system altogether, how communities, how different institutions, how different actors are actually responding to these subsystems as well. So our capacity for all these things are needed. But then in disability, we often considered earlier the person with disability issue is a sidelined issue. It's an issue which you consider later part of any project. But now we are not talking about it. We are really looking into the subject much more carefully, and this is a big need because in many countries we have seen person with disabilities is a big figure. For example, in Sri Lanka there is a big number of people we have seen with person with disabilities. So a standard early warning system without incorporating mechanisms for person with disability would be worthless. So person with disabilities have disability in many spheres, like visual impairment, hearing impairments, the disability of accessing different locations due to differential capacities. So in general we can make early warning systems much more comprehensive and much more I would say differently able mechanisms to incorporate for differently able people. And we're doing quite a lot actually under UNESCAP Tsunami Trust Fund, Tsunami and Climate Trust Fund. We are working very closely with Gates Foundation, and Gates Foundation is a global network on a person with disability. We are developing several guidances, particularly to set guidance on inclusive systems for person with disability. And we're talking about things like universal design. We're talking about things like accessibility, mobility. We're talking about policies. We're talking about different technologies for warning dissemination. For example, if you have hearing disability, then how a siren system can be useful. It doesn't actually give any access to towards that particular information. Similarly, for example, if we were, just giving lights, then the person with visual disability will have different understanding. And also, the issues of, other types of disability. So we are coming up with guidance sheets, tip sheets, and those kind of things, and incorporating within the end-to-end early warning system. And that's where we are trying to also bring socially inclusive, mechanisms for incorporating, different types of disability through a differential ability. So that kind of thing. So early warning, I would say this is another generation of early warning, what we are doing now. So with the generous support from UNESCAP Trust Fund, but also ADPC, Gates Foundation, media people, and others, we are working together to develop a really useful guideline, which can be, set a new standard for, disaster inclusive, but disaster inclusive early warning system for person with disability. So these are some of the things we are doing at this point. But I think lots of advocacies, lots of, concentrated planning, systematic planning, working with partners, working with different sectors is very much needed to develop a more comprehensive plan of action for inclusion of persons with disabilities and with differential capacity and different manners. Much more, we need to think more innovatively to do that. That is a challenge, but we're committed towards that.